So everybody, welcome to this month's RoboGlobal webinar. We are kind of taking a slight departure from what we typically cover in our monthly or quarterly calls. Also, Zeno and I don't have a monthly Ask Us Anything forum webinar this month, so we are happy to take questions and kind of incorporate our AMA style call into today's conversation as well. But we wanted to talk specifically about why small businesses, specifically small businesses here in the US, are implementing automation solutions. Now that's for the manufacturers, more robotics solutions, and for other companies, the addition of artificial intelligence, which is a hot topic right now, obviously. As an aside, Zeno has been a hot commodity with media and press lately. Everyone wants a thought and a statement about AI, so we can cover that in a minute. But we wanted to specifically talk about small and medium-sized businesses here in the US. First, because we've done some work, and you'll be able to download a white paper from RoboGlobal about small and medium-sized businesses, and some interviews that we've been doing with some smaller businesses to talk about the thought process behind their automation, what they look at before implementation, what they look at to determine the success of automation solutions in their businesses. So that white paper is coming from us, but also because we know that, especially for the financial advisors that invest in RoboGlobal's ETFs, small business owners are truly the core of your client base, and they are the people that you're typically prospecting. So we want to be able to give you a glimpse into what their, business life is like, as much as you're talking with them about their finances, to help you feel confident and remain relevant kind of in what's important in their professional day to day. So as you're going out and talking to your clients and prospects that own small businesses, maybe this will give you a few interesting touch points and ways to feel connected to what they're doing. Zeno, let's talk about small and medium-sized businesses and why they're important and how they're utilizing automation solutions.
Yeah, so kind of as the topic of this webinar suggests, automation isn't just for the Fortune 500; it's for small and medium-sized businesses, which, as you can see on this page, account for a majority of businesses in the country, and nearly 50% of the workforce. So, one thing that I kind of want to start off by setting the tone for is that countries in areas that have adopted more automation and robotics, typically, and this is proven, and you can look this up. I'm sorry we don't have this on there. I think they typically have like 50% more employment or higher than others. So you're looking at like the highest employment rates in the world coexist with high automation. So think of like Japan, China, United States. And so, to say things are moving fast is an understatement. We've had 2 years of cloud and automation adoption from COVID, and now we're kind of seeing AI penetrate very quickly into corporate and even consumer lives faster than many people had anticipated. So, how is this going to change things for both an investment standpoint and investment roles and managing data, to also the types of companies that are going to benefit from automation and are a key part of this transition. So for small and medium-sized businesses, you've got a different set of problems. You have less resource generally for each company. So each company, maybe you have HR, you've got XYZ. A lot of these things are often outsourced or limited as kind of like part-time work contractually. So a lot of times in manufacturing, the logistics, if you're part of a smaller trucking company or a contract manufacturer in the United States, you actually depend on this automation to have a competitive edge and be a local manufacturing service for these companies. So it actually is the ability that you can function now, especially as competition increases. This is also benefiting from a lot of the reshoring happening over from Asia. You had 20, 30 years of manufacturing going overseas, and now that's coming back. So there's more demand for local, which means there's more money able to go into CapEx and a concept known as robotics as a service for these platforms to scale up computer vision and warehouse automation and things like that. So why now? Yeah, as I was alluding to, there's a competitive edge and market forces. Um, so, as an example, like the global robotics market was about 65 billion in 2021. It's expected to be 180 billion by 2027. This is industrial, logistics, and consumer applications. So, kind of a why now also is that there's kind of this democratization of robotics technology. It's getting cost effective and lightweight enough that you can fit these into smaller form factors. This, I know I'm talking about robotics, we'll also cover, and this also relates to enterprise automation for workflows and things that often get lost in the mix. The cost for things that used to be very expensive services is also going down for these small and medium-sized businesses, which is going to help them employ more people and have more profitability. And then shifting age demographics, Japan's kind of further ahead of the curve, but we are going up the curve. So right now we're in a position, and I think it was France is having some big controversies around raising the retirement age, but the more people that are in retirement that are not working, the more a support buffer layer is needed. So this has typically been accrued through pension and other things like that. But now, with high and rising Medicare costs, healthcare is around, way too close to 20% of GDP. That's not stopping as we are experiencing more people going into that age group. So you have less people working that are more expensive to maintain. Everything needs to be more effective. And that's both healthcare, cost, and administration. So you're seeing the US government providers shifting to value-based care. They're looking at using more to automate doctor's notes. So Microsoft acquired Nuance, which was an HTech Think member years ago. That is now getting supercharged with GPT technology to make the administrative tasks of doctors so much easier because they spend hours a day working on this. That leads to doctor fatigue and burnout, and also just drives cost for the administrative system. So we hope that administrative cost and outcomes go up from that. So that's kind of a big play. You also will see that technology trickle into mom and pop urgent care clinics in local areas. And the technology adoption is generally slower in these areas, but the way that it's being developed and pushed now is so streamlined with existing workflows and technologies that the barrier for adoption and understanding this technology is dropping rapidly too. So we predict massive adoption among small and medium-sized businesses. And lastly, going into that, I'll quickly just touch that. The labor shortage, that's clearly aging demographics. You've got 24/7 economy with high demands, high production requirements, very complex needs, and oftentimes robots can help as a cobot, which essentially helps with specific tasks that are very repetitive and motion, like picking and things like that, where it'll help facilitate 24/7 upkeep and make sure that there aren't any weak links in the operations.
No, it's just to jump in on you, Zena, I don't want to kill your thought here, but it's really interesting to talk about the aging population. I think it surprises a lot of people that so many of our companies are based in Asia. And what really drove specifically the Japanese market to really be world leaders in building robots is the fact that they've had an aging population and a population decline for several decades. And so now that we in the US are staring down this issue, we are starting to pick up some steam, which is really promising. It's also really interesting to look at the aging population as driving demand for automation and automation specifically on in the healthcare sector, but also the aging population requiring more robots to take more jobs. So they're kind of on the demand, they're creating supply and they're also creating demand for robots.
Yeah, exactly. It's symbiotic there.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of seeing that also in the AI space with companies like NVIDIA, where a couple years ago they were really benefiting from kind of this blockchain mining, Bitcoin mining, and gaming as the world kind of locked up. Now everyone's they're not just GPU providers, they're AI providers. There's a symbiotic relationship where if you build it, the business will come and you'll so it's exactly what you just said. And it's especially true for these small and medium-sized businesses to be proactive and adopt this. And I think they're catching on. When we go to conferences, we often see, you know, IMTS in Chicago, International Manufacturing Technology Show. You see lots of small manufacturing businesses there. Like, you know, we go in thinking it's just going to be big shops, big players. Everyone is interested in automating and improving safety. Even, you know, we can even talk about worker safety. No one wants to have injured people on the job. That not only hurts business, it hurts someone you care about, an employee. So that's another area where we're excited to see improvement. So kind of moving on to the benefits of automation. Next slide. So as I was just saying, you know, reduces errors, help reprioritize, you know, prioritizes time and efforts of employees. So reducing errors can be in the physical world and in the digital world. It can be, an error could be a forced error or an accidental error. Someone clicking and dragging the wrong document into a folder and having a legal breach or document information sharing. So, you know, things like cybersecurity controls for document management is an area where you could see automation being very helpful for small businesses to make sure things don't fall in the cracks. If there's an important email, chasing up the follow-up and having these tools available to run and not have to worry about running the business as much. Like basically being able to focus on the core job of your business is essentially the gist here. So there's, you know, helping the auxiliary type of work and then actually helping streamline your own work, whatever that may be. So that's basically like helping employees do the work they're paid for and what you want them to be doing rather than dealing with administrative and other tasks. You know, resource efficiency. If you own a warehouse that's operating at 50% capacity or you have a choke point and that can be solved with technology, it makes sense to pay money either upfront or have a subscription to solve that problem. So you have consulting companies that are, you know, system integrators like Siemens and others that come in and will help design, there's consulting for digital world, enterprise software, and then for the real world, which would be a systems integrator. And essentially they have this toolbox of technology. They go in and help solve your problems. So you see these companies in the Robo Index because they're, you know, very key players. They do provide and create their own technology too, not just, you know, basically connecting the dots as a single software layer, but they also, many of them have their own hardware solutions they've either built out or acquired over the years. And then I've already touched upon creating safer workplace. That's something I think everyone can agree is a good thing. It's, you know, Amazon was kind of a pioneer of getting robotics in through Kiva Systems back in the day. And now you're seeing, you know, superior tech to that, you know, just comparing the time, being able to be offered into, you know, small and medium-sized businesses, which we find very encouraging and very positive for the resilience of, you know, our markets and our businesses.
Just to bring a couple of real world examples into this, just talking with some people to doing the interviews for the white paper, optimizing resources is really important, specifically in the ag tech space. We talked with one specific family farmer who's using variable rate seeding to use his land more efficiently. Where there is fertile land that can handle more seeds, they are seeding that more heavily and using technology on previously maybe unfarmed parts of their properties that they can actually still use to bring in some crop yield, but they're more thoughtfully seeding that land. Also, obviously, really important to use technology to be able to eliminate water waste in agriculture. That's not a unique story to people who live out west, but I think people in the Midwest would be surprised at how carefully farmers are watching and utilizing their water. Also, really important. I spoke with a manufacturer, a metal cast company essentially, and he wants to keep his long-term labor. I think there's like this idea that small and medium-sized businesses are implementing robotics technologies, specifically in something like manufacturing or logistics, to be able to eliminate labor, to like remove jobs. There's kind of this idea that robots are replacing people, but actually he's looking at adding more automation solutions to his manufacturing process because he wants to keep his employees with really strong institutional knowledge available and working for him longer. He just finds that it's really important that the people who really truly understand how his business work and how his processes work on the line aren't burning out. And some of that is, you already spoke to it, just the physical burnout of working in some of these manufacturing facilities, but where he can kind of take the labor off and use them more thoughtfully, as opposed to just doing kind of repetitive tasks on the line. He's going to use robots to assist them. And it's not at all an effort to add robotic solutions to replace labor.
Yeah, those are good points. And you'll see that those trends continue with, if you're able to have more customers through increased automation. Exactly. You don't necessarily want to lay off anyone, and especially if you have skilled talent, you can, as you said, retool them or reposition them in another area to grow with the company. So that's a good point there too.
I'll hop in on this one. So we actually have a pretty, I would say, a robust database at RoboGlobal of retail investors. And we actually had our marketing team send out a survey to those retail investors that we've really built up over the last 10 years of investing and publishing about robotics and automation. And we asked them kind of what they thought about robots taking kind of more prominent roles in society. It was really interesting to us, or to me specifically, that 60% of our retail audience thought that it's important to invest in future technologies like robotics and AI. The timing of this, we did this poll I think in January. So obviously we had all been already talking about the large language models and artificial intelligence. But it's also interesting that while people are investing in robotics solutions, almost the exact same number, 61%, are not at all worried about robots or technology replacing their jobs. So you have also kind of a disconnect between the 60% who are not thinking that they are going to be replaced in the workforce, with 80% of our investors thinking that, or our retail investors thinking that tech can solve some of these problems that we have on a more macro level about things like rising healthcare costs and labor shortages. So there's a ton of optimism among retail investors and the general public about what technology can do. Obviously, a lot of people are saying it's important to invest in those solutions with their own investment dollars, but they truly do also think, at least on a majority of them think that they will not at all be replaced by any of these technologies. So, Zeno, I think this is a good time maybe to pivot to some of the artificial intelligence conversation, because that is, I think, where that 60% that doesn't expect to be replaced, they might find themselves working maybe more with technology, or truly there are going to be some job losses because of advanced artificial intelligence. So let's maybe focus in the conversation there a little bit.
Yeah, so I like to say it's been AI prime time for a while. We're just now seeing it in the public eye. It's kind of thinking about the creation of the Think Index in 2018. We deliberately decided to look at companies that were heavily investing in, building out, a ton, AI infrastructure, whether it's providing technology for the chip makers themselves to actually build the chips, companies like ASML, Lam Research, et cetera, to the cloud infrastructure, and to developing, DevOps technologies, the full ecosystem. We're now seeing kind of this crescendo of all of these pieces coming together, because let's say you even had large language models. Well, if you didn't have these GPUs that could handle it, it wouldn't be possible. Well, they also were necessary for training it, let alone operating in real time. We also, even this call we're doing right now is this amalgamation of different technologies, allowing the bits and bytes to flow and connect us all in real time. So we're at this nexus point where we're seeing AI actually being released into the public really for the first time, rather than just kind of enterprise level automation, such as robotic process automation. This obviously has a lot of implications for everyone. And if you're, been sitting under a rock, you might not know that, we're seeing what was maybe like a 50% adoption rate of Fortune 500 enterprise last year for kind of any form of automation like that using RPA. It's basically we're looking at maybe 100%, 90% adoption by the end of this year now, at least in some format. I mean, it's really changed because LLMs, large language models like GPT, which powers ChatGPT, are being, the underlying source code and models are being integrated into companies. Like, I think Morgan Stanley was even one of the companies that was highlighted when GPT-4 was announced as a case study where they're helping surface information for employees to basically search all of their information historically around different markets and things to be able to query that data and like help create reports and find information faster. Now you're saying, well, like, could that replace paralegal type work or analyst type work? And it's like, actually, they will be using it, and you probably should be too. But everyone will be using this to make their jobs faster. I think an interesting note is there's obviously been a lot of like work outsourcing to places like the Philippines, India, etc. If you look at Google Trends of what areas of the world are most interested by like percentage of population and how Google Trends organizes it, you see Philippines as one of the highest rates of usage of this because now they have great English overall, but they've realized that for them to be faster and more effective at their job, they're using it. So consider these like hardworking individuals over there collectively do a lot of outsourced work contractually. You're just seeing like super fast adoption there. That's also, I would say, even if an organization hasn't adopted GPT or any other model, obviously there's confidentiality, like don't be putting in confidential information into that. If you have an enterprise license with some of these technologies, you will be able to work with and have basically a privacy zone in that. Otherwise, it goes into GPT's like overall analysis. There's already been issues of companies coding on it. I guess to kind of centralize this back, there will be some job loss, but it's really hard to say exactly how because there are jobs that will be augmented by AI, and there are areas that will could be displaced. We'll also start to see this trickle into the real world with more cobots and things that can interact with humans out in the real world. Maybe whether you're checking out or ordering groceries or doing whatever.
I always get this question, so I'm just going to jump in with it. Are there any specific like sectors or areas of the economy that you think are perhaps most exposed to job loss because of artificial intelligence?
Yeah, I mean, look, everyone's always kind of afraid to say these things in public because part of it's opinion, part of it is just we don't know yet, so you don't want to make these predictions. But I would say like the legal space is an example. A lot of this contractual development sure requires expertise, sharpshooters, human-to-human interaction, but there's kind of like some of the administration and ecosystem behind that. I worked in legal tech in the past too, so I've been in that space. We were already implementing AI for like e-discovery and contract automation. Like this has already been around for a while. It's just been supercharged. So not just contract analysis, but development, understanding legal risk, and just all these things that like a first-year analyst would do. They'll be using GPT, but it seems like the amount of people to solve some of these problems might go down. So I think that's like an area. In healthcare, I think there's definitely a bloat in healthcare administration type roles. And even potentially in the college and education system. You have a need for more education, more teachers, but you have kind of this, lopsided administrative heavy role that maybe those areas can be streamlined to have better flow of money to where it needs to go for society, like better outcomes, better healthcare, better education. I think it'll help repurpose and funnel money to where it needs to go versus paying things that really shouldn't even be there in the first place, that just kind of add complexity to the situation.
Mhm.
In terms of like subsectors and what areas of like kind of like AI and robotics ecosystem, you've got, e-commerce is about to change. Personalized shopping is about to become a truly real thing. So right now, if you go to Amazon and buy something, it might recommend that same product like a week later. Like I just bought this. Whereas, custom, personalized clothing that will fit you. It's easier for men generally to shop than women. But you've got companies that are working like kind of like privacy focused 3D scanning that will help you actually understand how this would fit on you in real life before you even try it on. So returns are a huge issue in the clothing industry. There's lots of waste in clothing. So even secondary markets that work off that, people don't often buy secondary because return policies can be weird. So you're going to see kind of like AI trickle in to improve so many different processes. Obviously, cybersecurity, I've already mentioned, is a huge beneficiary as more and more things are automated and are online, including like personal identity and data, and that's being used to automate services on your behalf and find things for you. I mean, very important that you have security for not just delivering the content, so a company like Cloudflare, but protecting the data centers and actually making sure the data centers are operational and don't have anything wrong with them. So you have companies like Arista and Pure Storage that are helping scale infrastructure that make sure that this is operating well. And yeah, so, and then obviously semiconductor. None of this would be possible without semiconductor and AI chips that are helping power, processing and storage and all of that. So kind of looking at all of it coming together. To quote one of my favorite movies from last year, it's everything, everywhere, all at once, coming together for AI. Highly recommend if you haven't watched.
I think I might be the last person in America that hasn't watched it. I don't know. On your recommendation, I'll try to get to it. A couple other questions I have. Okay, so these are going to bounce a little bit all over the place. Are there particular sectors where labor is hardest to find that you would expect to automate faster than others?
So I guess an area where the US is still struggling, and other parts of the world is skilled healthcare services. Mm-hmm. So it's a mix of like, you actually have people available, but they're burnt out and there's just not enough. And that's leading to less necessary, like you're not getting people the care they need. It's also very expensive for healthcare systems as that supply and demand imbalance exists. It's settled down from the peak of COVID. But just kind of, I think healthcare is an immediate space where you don't have enough of the right people positioned in the right places to have a fully streamlined experience. So you have companies that are coming in to help solve some of these like point tasks, such as pharmacy management, or even just tracking who's covering what and when, and making sure that you're not getting false alerts on people, and that people that are in danger are getting alerts. So kind of going back to making sure people and resources in the right place at the right time could solve, unilaterally solve some of these issues. Obviously, also just supply chain, trucking, logistics. Well, if we have autonomous trucking, which I think it's, I'm blanking, Aurora? Yeah, Aurora Trucks and FedEx and others are looking at having autonomous semis on the road by next year, fully autonomous. But I think down where you're at, between Houston and Dallas, I mean, their goal is to be able to do overnight truckloads from a Dallas or Houston to LA, which normally requires a flight, right? So you could have this lower cost autonomous freight. And one of the reasons why it can't be that way is because there's obvious laws around how much a driver can drive in a day. So it's not even, you'd have to have like 2 drivers, and it's a very complicated human resource management to do that. So that's another area where we could have way more overnight truck traffic delivering and offsetting the cost of overnight shipping via air, and just kind of add to this, helping solve supply chain issues that we've been seeing and it had many bottlenecks from. And that's also automation and shipyards that funnel in.
I mean, anecdotally, we spoke with the chief technology officer of a fairly significantly sized casino operation on the East Coast. And he had a hard time finding labor, obviously, through COVID. Security specifically was a really difficult issue for them. They need people in the actual facility watching screens. So they've been able to use some facial recognition technologies to watch for theft on the casino floor. And the AI actually can help them use fewer bodies essentially in the booth watching all of the cameras. And where is, this person going after they see something suspicious on the casino floor? And they can repurpose those people on a day-to-day basis. Also, anecdotally, back to that family farming operation that we spoke to in the Midwest, The more efficient they are with technology, the more crop yield they're going to have. And they're really struggling to find labor because of domestic labor shortages, but also because immigration policy is pretty difficult right now in the US. So it's a conundrum that the more they automate, the harder labor is to find, and the more they actually need labor. The job of like picking and actually like bringing in crops is very difficult. It's like the least practical, they said, of a lot of the automations and like the robots that are being brought to market. So as they are becoming more efficient and actually more competitive against some of the big ag companies, they're having a real struggle finding labor, and automation perhaps isn't a great solution for them. So that's one sector that's really struggling, just anecdotally from doing interviews for our white paper.
Yeah,
Let me scan a couple
makes
other
sense.
questions I have for you. We covered the job elimination or potentially by Chat GPT. Final question. Do you want to talk about worker re-education? Are there good plans to re-educate workers as jobs might become more technology oriented? Are there more advanced technical training that you think are practical? Do you want to speak to that at all? We'll take that unless anyone submits one question into the chat.
No, that's a good question. I'm gonna refer to an article I wrote years ago. I think it was in 2019 or 2018. I didn't mean to, cause the pandemic, but I wrote, "It's almost the end of the world as we know it." And one of the main topics, I did not know that was coming. I wasn't pressing it, but I did allude and reference a paper I had read that was jointly created through BCG, the World Economic Forum, and also referenced, the U.S. Department of Labor. And they had made an estimate that around like 3 to 5 million jobs would need to be retrained over the next decade, reskilled because they were displaced. And I thought that was a massive understatement. And I wrote that. I was like, I think that's at least a 10x understatement, because if you look at all these different industries, autonomous vehicles for both freight and human, if you look at AI, just, in the jobs market, it's even the people that are their own job and sole purpose of work is to look at labor markets and how technologies are being implemented and working there. Kind of missed this by a big shot, because already people, I think everyone still uses Excel and spreadsheets. There have been a lot of companies that have come around, but now Microsoft has made technology that can, they're implementing GPT into Excel. And if you're not using that, you're just wasting time and you're not a valuable resource because someone else can do it faster. So I think everyone will need to be, whatever their function is, like it's not an option at this point. Like they need to learn how to work with AI and communication, how to work with it. What are the limitations? What are the opportunities to do this? And also, you don't want to waste your time at all. It's not even about, like a top-down viewpoint. It's look up and see kind of the opportunity here to jump in. And that's also with in manufacturing, you've got cobots. Well, a lot of times, like the work, there were specific stations where the robot worked and the human worked, and now you have these robots that can, move things on the floor of the warehouse, and that's also starting to enter more of the manufacturing space. And you just have to, like these workers have to get used to it and understand, okay, that's not going to hit me. I'm okay with that. And oh, look at it helping me carry this object to get to this and do this job faster. So it basically applies to every facet of every job at this point. It's hard to say an area that doesn't. Look at that. Goldman Sachs put out a report and a couple others that a lot of physical labor type roles, like janitorial work will be like, they ranked them as like lowest. Like there was a scale of high replacement versus high collaboration versus like not really impacted. Like janitorial work was very low on that, along with some other manual type work like that, cleaning. And but if you look at, if you connect the dots, well, we're already seeing drones and computer vision being used to help analyze not just human and other behavior, but structural cracks and integrity of infrastructure, which is crumbling. And that's why the Infrastructure Act was passed, is to help produce better bridges, and hopefully generative AI technology will help reduce the cost of that plan and make it hopefully, a very effective plan to, add new bridges and fix roads, and also analyze what needs work ahead of time. So preventative, kind of we have preventative care in human in health, can have preventative care in like operations and flows of infrastructure too. So yeah, I've kind of gone off the topic. We were talking about jobs, but I think it's important for everyone to realize, wherever you're looking at for your own job and things, or areas you're investing in, like things are changing. It's changing fast. And I think, it's hard to stay on top of all these things. So hopefully we are a resource to be available for that. Across looking at different industries. And yeah, just glad everyone's here to be interested and care about this personally or professionally.
Well, I don't have any more questions dialed up for you in the chat box. I will remind everybody that the white paper about small and medium enterprises and their adoption of technology will be out shortly and emailed out to everybody. If you have any more questions as follow-up, you can just send them over to me. I'm Lauren at roboglobal.com. We can get analysts or Zeno or the appropriate analyst on those questions if you have follow-ups. But thanks for joining us today, Zeno. Thank you as always. Great to see you.
Thank you, Lauren. Great to see you.
Take
Thanks,
care,
everyone.